afternoon, everybody. How you going? Come on, I know it's the last. It is the last. I've been up since 3 o'clock. How was that? It's going to be fun. Alright, so as I said, my name's Mark. I'm from the business school here at Griffith. And when CJ asked me to offer, thanks to CJ for the invitation, she didn't really tell me what she wanted me to talk about. She said, just something about all the work you've done on Will. And I thought, well, the one thing that really annoys me when I talk about all the work that not just myself but my team and department have done is that, show me the money. A number of times I've been asked, you know a few people in the industry, go and get $1 million off it, or go raise $100,000. Just like that. So that's the heading is sort of almost the counter narrative to what I want to talk about today. And when I thought through, given what's going on, you've heard about today in terms of a national agenda, what the university is doing, and indeed what our business school is currently doing in terms of its strategic plan, this industry engagement piece, which is broader than Will, absolutely, is certainly something that's at the forefront of what we're doing. And I thought, well, rather than go through the theory and the evidence, because we've had a lot of that today, and that's really important, I'd take a slightly different tack and go through what we've been doing from a very pragmatic point of view and how we've got there. And this was actually quite a fun presentation to build, although it was in the early hours of this morning, because it reminded me of everything that's happened and the long journey we've been on in terms of building up all the partnerships that we've got and the multifaceted outcomes that have come from that. So I want to talk basically about the lessons learned approach rather than from the academic literature, if that makes sense. I'll try and not put academic element too much to that. And the multiple forms of that, of Will, but not just Will. If there's anything that I've learned over the last 10 years of doing this, it's that you've got to find the starting point for the industry partner. Sometimes it is Will and the student, sometimes it's not. You will have, as we've heard from Calvin and Stephen and others today, your own goals for what you want to achieve and where you want to get them to, but you can't necessarily force that on an industry partner. That's a great way to actually upset them. I'll have causal references to scholarship of learning and teaching along the way, and I mean verbal references. Indeed, if you want some of the literature I refer to, please let me know, I'm more than happy to send it to you. Another favourite topic of mine, hopefully we won't have time for that because I might upset a few people, how we actually get the stuff done, which is really not that easy, particularly if you're doing something. It's a little bit outside of the policy rating. So we talk about my history with Will, reflections on all this industry engagement stuff, a little bit of evidence mainly about the OLT fellowship that I'm supposed to have finished a year ago but haven't yet, and then a little bit about where we're going. Number 4, we'll have to get through a signed confidentiality agreement before I can talk to you about that, but I'll trust you. And then if we've got time, some questions. Okay, some disclaimers. I'm not an expert in this space, and by that I mean you're not going to get a formula, you're not going to get a model, you're not going to get a solution. You're going to get a whole lot of experiences and little tips and tricks that we've learned along the way. Most of my work's obviously in the business school, but more narrowly in the field, the emerging profession, as I call it, of financial advice, which is very different, right? And I can see by some of your actions straight away what that means. It's an area I'm really passionate about, but one that's got lots of opportunities for us in a whole range of reasons. So look at this through that lens, as I'm contractually obliged to do, while this stuff is related to the fellowship. What I'm talking about may or may not be the views of the Commonwealth Government. I'll leave that to you to decide. A couple of other acknowledgements, certainly the OLT, there's the logo as I'm meant to do, the Fellows Forum, which is outstanding, all the industry partners have worked over the years. And as I've said several times, this is not just my work, this is a representation of the work of dozens of people that I've worked with over the past 10 years. I'll provide you information on later on. Okay, part 1, history of Will. So, 2001, start my academic career at this university, and it's the only place I've been at. And I came back to do a PhD, like many, some, be careful what I say, a lot of academics. It was the research focus. Had the plan to do the PhD. What happened? That. Now you might think, students, actually in my mind it was industry. Where are they? Why aren't we talking to them? Why aren't we dealing with them? Why the academics, obviously more senior than me because it was day one, why don't they have relationships with them? Why aren't they talking with the associations? And it took me quite a while to work through that. In about 2003, I think it was, we started our financial planning degree on the Logan campus. I moved out there. I was the director of the suite of business degrees out there at the end of my first year as an academic. Good, maybe not good, but anyway. And I continued that for about 7 years. Over the course of that time, colleagues and I sort of worked out we've got to do something about this. We've got to find ways to get industry involved. The university's not going to do it for us, our senior colleagues aren't going to do it for us, and we're probably not going to get a lot of assistance along the way. So, in 2006 we ran an event which we dubbed a Student Industry Conference, which was quite innovative at the time, maybe not so now. And the theme of it was a penny for your thoughts. And that was slightly tongue-in-cheek, because it was us playing games, experimenting, trying to have fun, but it was also this whole thing of getting student and industry in the room together. To do this, we managed to get a $15,000 sponsorship from a professional body. We managed to get a small teaching and learning grant to do it. So this wasn't going for operational funds, as I would call it now, having spent too many years in academic management. We ended up publishing a paper from this, our first, for most of us involved in our first foray into scholarship, learning and teaching. At the same time, or as a result of that, the professional body that we managed to get involved, and the CEO personally flew up to the event and ended up giving the students you saw present very well a $10,000 prize on the spot. Literally a few days later, she was starting a new council called the Future Financial Planners Council. And she said to me, "Oh, we'd really like an academic on this. Are you willing?" "Yeah, no worries, sounds great." So I participated in that. Again, funded from the university for travel, but saw it as an important investment in my career, but also in terms of what we were doing with our programs. First meeting I go into, I sit down, I'm sitting next to a gentleman named Tim Steele. Tim was the foundation director of what was called the A&E Horizons Academy, which was a career change program designed at getting people, typically out of teaching, nursing and defence, into financial advice. Got to know Tim really well. That's the first high-rise in Sydney, the building in Circular Quay, you don't recognise it. And over the next couple of years, spent a fair bit of time with Tim, talking about what they were doing in the academy, helping them with their resources and educational design, and certainly on that council that I referred to as well. All on not on a consulting or contract basis, but on a helping improve what's going on the industry basis. 2008, leading up to 2008, I had a very strange experience on AFE's external advisory board. We got put through the ringer, to say the least, in terms of how are you differentiating yourselves from QUT and UQ, as it was. And to be honest, we didn't really have an answer. But I had an idea that had come out of all of this work of giving you a very brief snapshot of. And I was maybe foolish enough to alliterate that without having spoken to the head of the department or other people who are in this room. The industry board basically jumped on it and said, "Can you please give us a 2-page proposal by the end of the week?" This is the week before Christmas in 2007, which I did overnight. Then I unfortunately ran into the Provost Chancellor at the time, Professor John Dewar, who had heard about this, wanted it, and approved it on the spot, literally in the corridor between the two buildings. This was a degree that became known as the BCom Professional, run out of Logan. In a nutshell, we created trimesters, not because we wanted to create 2-year degrees, but because we wanted students to do half the degree in the first year and then go part-time in a paid internship for 2 years while they were studying part-time. And a whole range of other things. First foray into this, a student, me, obviously a student, and one of the senior people at KPMG in Brisbane at the time, front cover of the page. Within a little bit of time, we managed to get Marsh Ticknell, a local accounting firm to the Nathan campus, KPMG, probably know, a big advice firm, Tuppercoffs, who's one of our probably long-standing partners and a bunch of other firms. We actually went knocking door to door. Funny thing about that was the first firm I went to see was KPMG, and I remember thinking, I'm going to get beaten up here. I'm not going to get beaten up. And I was going to get beaten up because of where has Griffith been? What have you been doing? Why should we work with you now? We were doing all the stuff with QUT just over there, and UQ just across the river. In fact, I was right to some extent. I got beaten up for about half an hour, but it wasn't about what Griffith is doing, it was about what is higher education doing? What are all your universities doing? And then they turned up, paid sponsorship, and we went on. It's great. So here we started to get a bit more serious. And this is what we call the boots and all model. In terms of the structure of that degree, with a fully designed professional development program running alongside it, concentrating on a whole range of other skills. At the same time, the FPA, so circling back to that connection with the first event, was producing a white paper to challenge the industry, its industry, on the education and professional standards in that industry. This is back in 2008, 2009. And I managed to co-author that with the CEO and the Chair of Professional Standards. And among other things, it pushed out a degree requirement of professional body and so on, more professional body and so forth. The degree goes on, 2009. By this stage, we've got about 60 industry partners across finance, financial planning and accounting. We've got about an admin team of 3, plus a bunch of academic staff working on this. This is Brett Fredenberg's lovely model that ended up in the paper, which I won't go through now for the interest of time. But at this stage, we've produced about a dozen academic papers. We'd raised about $100,000 in industry sponsorship for the different events we were running. And at the time, as Keith here reminds me, this was one of the best performing degrees in the country when you looked at student satisfaction, student outcomes, so on and so forth. Small scale, absolutely, but on those metrics it was going very well. We get more sophisticated in our themes and our events, start running business breakfasts, keynote speakers from industry, student prizes, and you can see sort of the seats in the front. This gentleman here, sorry, people on the other side, looking slightly towards the camera, is Neil Kendall. He's the owner of Tuppercoffs I mentioned before, but also now chair of the board and a very big supporter of ours, and about half of his staff are our students on that job, which is really good. Started doing speed dating. We started sort of the social or allied activities attached to this, building a sense of cohort and direction, and why we care and our supporting and so on and so forth. 2010, anyone know what that is? So that's the top floor of that AMP building I showed you earlier, and they start to get a lot more serious about what they're doing. We start running with them or supporting them and running what's now known as the AMP University Challenge, which is a nationwide competition which our students have won only once, unfortunately, but we usually have some finalists in there. And they start to have really serious conversations with us about what they want to do in terms of improving their program, the Horizons Academy program, turning it into a postgrad program, part of a master's degree, upskilling the workforce of about 4,000 professional advisors and so on and so forth. So things really start to get traction here. At the same time, we're dealing with a lot of other organisations. We start winning awards like the Business Higher Education Roundtable Award, national citations, national outcomes, so on and so forth. By the stage, we're up to about 5 teaching and learning grants as well in this space, some internal, some external, to allow us to do it. So again, the programs keep running, the PDP keeps rolling on, students keep getting these experiences. The regulator starts to intervene. Things start to really heat up in the financial advice space, things you've probably seen in the media. The government starts to get involved and the regulator starts to issue consultation papers and guidance notes on how do we improve this. In 2012, the FPA did a couple of things. One, they set up an education council to build a degree architecture, which signalled their intent to move to a degree requirement for their members. Not all practitioners, but for their members. I was one of the founding members of that board, and now I chair it. And it became patently obvious to me that not only was this an emerging field and were we struggling in terms of traction and other activities, notwithstanding what I've shown you already, but at the national level we were going nowhere in higher education. There's a photo of a group of colleagues from around 5 or 6 different institutions at an FPA conference, deciding to get together and form a forum, now known as the Financial Planning Academics Forum. We've got about 120 members, meets 3 times a year, and so forth. Interesting about this, that's Mark Rantel, the previous CEO of the FPA, who sort of opened some of the initial events. There's one of our students winning the University Challenge, or sorry, she's second place in the University Challenge. This sort of innocuous photo is really interesting. We actually managed to get the regulator to come along to our forum 3 years in a row and build a very close relationship with them to the point where they were giving us documents that hadn't been released publicly for consultation. That was very useful for them, they say, but certainly very useful for us in terms of the academic community, in terms of knowing what was going on. There's the few students who won that year of the AMP Challenge. See how much one of the previous senior people at AMP. At the same time, as I started to allude to, things are now getting really open in the media around financial advice failures, product failures, banks behaving badly, and so on and so forth. The education standards start to get very closely looked at. I'm not sure if you know Adele, but she loves their reporting in the space. The one $37 billion one was really interesting. Basically, a reporter kept hearing that the education requirements, the legislative education requirements for advice can be done in 36 hours. So he went out and actually did it himself and then reported. Funnily enough, that's actually still the standard today as we stand here from the government's perspective. There's draft legislation that's about to go. The industry then starts moving by itself. Big licensees start to create degree architecture and so forth. But guess what? They don't know what they're doing. So they come to the academic forum, they come to myself and my colleagues to try and to get input and advice, formally and informally, into this. At the same time, the PJC, the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Corporate Financial Services, is meeting. They produce a report that basically says we should adopt the work the Financial Planning Education Council, the one that I'm now chair, has been doing and deploy it across the whole industry, not just the FPA's efforts. AMP at this point is still running its challenge. There's another winner for next year on, but they start talking to us very seriously about, well, we've done all this work with you over the last 6 or 7 years. We now want to move to a master's degree for our staff. We want to rebuild the Horizons Academy into our postgraduate level career and graduate program. And essentially the conversation went, will you do it with us? Okay. At this point, we start to get a little bit out of our depth. Suddenly we're dealing with about 50 industry partners, all who want varying degrees of support and input. We redirected a lot of it to work experience, internship models, formal and informal, and prize and scholarship programs. So that's Mark Marley, who's a Westpac planner, graduate of ours, does some tutoring for us. Linda, of course, on the right, our Dean Academic. And Crystal on the left, who's one of Neil Kendall's, the Thermo Method 4 students, third year financial planning student, and also has won too many prizes. She's a competitive little thing in Australia, 7 student. That's me in Vietnam. Why am I in Vietnam? Because one of the other groups we start doing work for approaches us on the research and consultancy side and wants input in terms of what they're doing around advice standards, advice structures, and their internal training, not as opposed to formal training for their advisors. So we ourselves, my team starts going all over the place doing presentations from various industry partners and so forth attached to this body of work and where we've gone. Government finally gets its finger out last year and produces draft legislation around the education and professional standards. At that stage, they put together the Commonwealth Finance Minister puts together a working party. We are asked to join that as the only academic once again, and we start to have some significant influence on where the regulatory architecture is going in that space. Another industry conference in New Zealand earlier this year, where between my staff did about 10 hours of presenting. In terms of presenting research, presenting practical work, updates on legislative standards. And this particular licensee is just won the Licensee of the Year award. So we're talking quite a large group, not one of the big banks, by the way, and not AMP. This was only a few weeks ago, the AMP University Challenge 2016 finals. The interesting thing about that, apart from the look on my face, is sitting next to me is the new CEO of the FPA, who's now very heavily engaged with us. A few days ago, Sun Super awarded a prize to a $5,000 prize to a young female student in financial planning, plus a whole bunch of work experience internships. There's another $10,000 one from Stonehouse, another planning group, and so on, and so it goes on. Okay. So, let me go to the boring part of the text that we like to see. So how do I sum all this up in terms of key points if you're looking to engage industry in wheel activities or a whole range of other activities from our experience? First of all, who's in your team? Right? If you want to do this at scale, you cannot do it by yourself, and many of your colleagues won't be interested. And I need professional staff as well as academic staff, and not just in your discipline, but your school, your faculty, and the broader administrative team of the university. You've got to get involved, is my view. I don't mean just asking them to come and take internships. Clearly, my brief's a lot broader than that. You've got to be prepared, in my view, to have presence in the industry. You've got to be prepared to go to industry conferences, industry events and other things that academics traditionally don't want to go to, or not funded to go to, and to be blunt, many times don't see as relevant. You've got to make yourself relevant. And by that I don't mean give up your academic agenda or your university agenda. You've got to understand their issues, you've got to understand how to articulate your issues in their language, and vice versa. We are very bad at doing that generally. So they might feel anyway. That's it. Understand their issues, what's going on. If you don't get at least 5 news feeds a day from your professional associations and the trade press, you're not keeping up with what's going on. So if you were, you'd be getting news in my field from Bloomberg, like I'm doing at the moment, telling me that Donald Trump's probably going to be great. Well, if you haven't sold already, you're screwed, but if you did, by God, I didn't tell you that. Be responsive. We have lots of problems with that with our students, of course. Industry, it's even worse. If they send you an email and you don't respond for 2 weeks, don't even bother. If you're not prepared to give out your mobile phone number to them, don't even bother. Be a part of the debate. They actually want us involved. They want the rigour and the independence and the capacity that we've got to bring to these debates, be a policy debate, a practice debate, or whatever. One of the other things that irks me is we often go into these conversations thinking about value for us. What do we need out of it? We need industry to give our students placement so we can get more students and better outcomes for students. I would urge you to consider it from the opposite direction first. What's in it for them? Why would they want to partner with us? Why would they want to spend time with us? Why would they want to spend time driving to campus? Why would they want to give us $90,000 for scholarships or whatever? If you can't articulate that, you're not going to get much very far. Some things, don't lose sight of the human capital debate. There is a race for talent going on in many fields, even though there might be an oversupply, there's still a race for talent. There are massive marketing benefits in it for them. They are very interested generally in being thought leaders, certainly in my fields anyway. And they're very interested in other contributions we can make to their conferences, to their professional development activities, to their overall sense of expertise in terms of what they're doing. And we bring enormous technical value, of course, as you would hope to expect. And lastly, often we start this the wrong way around. There is a strong social responsibility to philanthropic core to what they do as well. But if you lead with that, you're not going to get long-term great outcomes often in the first instance, unless of course you're talking to a charitable organisation or a foundation. And they are really interested in this. Reputation, influence and standing, and levering off what we're doing. Okay, so what do we need to do about it? What, if you want to go down the road of doing this as a substantial part of your role, as I said, prepare yourself. You can't just walk in, you need to research the businesses, understand who they are, what their drivers are, read their annual reports, find out what they're doing as you would expect. This is sort of business relationship 101. Funding and time. You're not going to get the funding, you're not going to get the time. Make the decision if you want to get involved or not still. Maybe that's harsh and maybe things are changing slightly depending on one's role. My view is there is no magic pudding in this space. But what you can do is be creative. So look for industry partnerships, look for consultancies, look for teaching and learning grants, look for a whole range of other things that can give you the resources, or sometimes be prepared to spend your own money. It's usually takes money. The sense of upfront investment, the universities typically don't like investing upfront. They want the outcomes. They don't. That's our reality, and we've worked around it. Your independence is really important. Don't compromise on it, and don't forget this is a long-term game. If you think you're going to come into this and get outcomes in a week or a day, a year, it's not going to happen. My association with the AUP thing is getting a little bit more attention in recent months, but most people don't realise that's been going on since 2006. That's how long it's taken us to get here, and that's the reality of what we've done. We should stop there.
Yeah, I'm getting this.